Hello and welcome to All for United. It's Ben here on the United Daily Podcast, kickstarting another brand new week. Hope you're keeping safe and well. It's good to have you with me this afternoon. And as ever, make sure you hit like on the video. And if you're not watching on YouTube, come over to YouTube and join our Red community, youtube.com/All for United. A like and a subscribe means a lot to us, means we can grow. And that's all thanks to you guys. And of course, we're going to be doing that competition in the next couple of weeks. You guys have been entering to get in the draw to win some Red Devil merch thanks to Football Town. Some more details on that in the coming weeks. But let's crack on with today's show, shall we? It's a Twitter React show. It's where we take tweets reacting to yesterday's game and we react to them and give our thoughts around the conversation that's within the tweets. So make sure you join us in the live chat and have your say. Really happy to be joined by football correspondent, works at Sirius, Graham Bailey's with me. Graham, how are you doing, mate?
Morning, Ben. I'm doing fine, thank you.
It's good to have you with me. We obviously had you on a couple of months ago when a tweet of yours went viral amongst United fans. Where you, let's say, you wasn't very pro Oddie. Just in a few words as a summary. Don't want you to put words in your mouth or say anything out of the ordinary. But where do you think United are at the moment? It's not been an overly awful season for United, is it so far?
It's not. I think that they've done it as expected. I think others have dropped off more, and that's helped with their progress. I think I would have liked to have seen them challenging. Although they are second and pushing, City have got that margin now. I think and it's not just United, I think Tottenham, Chelsea, etc. I think this was a great season for them to really push on and have a go at the title, because I don't think, not that City and Liverpool are in disarray, but they've been hampered by a lot of injuries, etc. I think this would have been a good season for someone else to push on. And I think we've seen that with Leicester as well, now pushing into the top four. So I think United they're doing okay. I think it's at the moment it's a 7 out of 10 season, which may very well be good enough to finish top 2, top 3. I haven't seen too much progression, but then again, they haven't fallen off either, which I think is always a positive. But I said, I always come at from a standpoint of, I think United are the biggest club in the world and they should always be pushing for the title. I don't think they should ever be happy with second place. So I come at it from a slightly different angle from some United fans who are happy to finish top 4, etc. But that's not how I see it.
Yeah, no, very good point, mate. I want to come back to what you just said there a bit about mentality and maybe we didn't plan to be in a title race this year for whatever reason, whether you agree with that or not. Maybe that wasn't part of the, so to speak, big plan to be in there. The fact that we've ended up in there, as you say, the slight concern for me is there does seem to be this mentality amongst players, staff, and maybe fans to say, well, this is sort of unprecedented for us. We're never meant to be in this title race. So what does it matter if we are in it or not? Well, the opportunity was there. And I think the difference at the moment between Manchester United and Leicester is that actually Brendan Rodgers there at Leicester is actually forcing some belief amongst those players to go, look, we're only X amount of points behind City. Let's just go and win game after game after game and see where we end up at the end of the season. Whereas United, it's sort of like, well, actually, let's sit back, doing better than Liverpool might just be enough this season. When actually, I'd just like a little bit more positivity around that, Graham. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I think it is, because we might look back at the season, Ben, and think, do you know what? In the next 5 years, City might get even better. Liverpool might come back. Leicester might go on to bigger things. Chelsea, United may look back at this season and think, do you know what? 2021, we had a real chance and we didn't do it. We didn't push on. And yeah, I hope we don't look back and think that, because I think the City are going to push on and make it very difficult. But City are doing this without a striker, Liverpool are doing that without a defence, and I think, as I said, I always thought that United were only a couple of players away, and we said that in the summer when we last spoke. I didn't think United were as far away as some people thought. I was always said that I thought they had a good enough spine, and they weren't a million miles away, and I think it's proven. I think they've got a good enough team to push. I'm not saying they've got a good enough team to win it, but I think with likes of Fernandes being an inspiration, Rashford, I'd still love to see Rashford play down the middle. Personally, I still think he could be a world class number 9 personally, but that's just my opinion. It's nothing to do with Ollie. That's just my opinion, and other United managers have thought the same as well. But I think they're really close. I don't think they're a million miles away, but I do hope they don't look back at this season with regret, because I think City and Liverpool Obviously, Liverpool dropped off massively. City haven't been what they were. They're on a good run of form now, but obviously they weren't at the start. So I think they were within touching distance, I think, this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it'd be nice to see us at the very least take City to the wire. We've got games against them. City still have some tough games coming up. Points will still be dropped, even how magnificent City look at the moment, and potentially how slightly poorly we've done the last few games. But we'll get into that. Right, let's jump into the Twitter reaction segment. So if you didn't hear at the start of the show, basically within this show, what we do is further reaction to yesterday's draw against West Brom. We take tweets that reacted to yesterday's game and use them as conversation points and chat around them. I want to come to this one first, and guys, get in the live chat. Give us your thoughts. Make sure you hit the like button on this video as well. I want to get to this one here from Annette, who's talking about the Lindelof incident yesterday, and I'll give my thoughts on it in just a second. Annette says, Lindelof denied a foul despite being mauled today. How could he defend the goal with an arm around his neck? No denying that our defence is no way good enough, but we're still second. We must get our act together or we'll struggle to get top four. Look, I just want to hit on one thing to do with this yesterday. Well, sort of two things. A, is this another example of VAR being really, really inconsistent? I don't know, because I don't know if there was actually enough in it for a foul. In real time, it doesn't look like it. If you look at the replays, potentially, but it goes back to that whole argument, what is a foul on the goalkeeper nowadays? Is a touch enough for a goalkeeper to go down like a sack of spuds and not win the ball? I don't know. Look, if contact's made, it needs to go one way or another. It either needs to be contact made, foul, no contact made, no foul. It's just all a little bit bonkers with the way that VAR works for me and these situations, because I think if VAR wasn't in play, we wouldn't be discussing whether that was a foul or not, because I just don't think that would in a million years be given as a foul. And additionally, I just want to hit on how awful Lindelof was there defensively. The striker wanted it more. And in the first 2 minutes of games, you cannot lose your man like that and let him get one up on you because he wants it more. It sets a precedent for the whole game. And I think throughout that whole game, we did see that West Brom just wanted something out of it more than United did with the way that they played. So I think from the very first minute, conceding that goal, it set a precedent. And I know people are going on that he's grabbed him around the head, he's grabbed him around the neck, blah, blah, blah. He hasn't. If you watched it back, he leans in with his arm, which consequently does go in his face. I still think if you're strong enough there, as Victor Lindelof, you win that header. Graham, what do you think? Was that a foul?
No, it wasn't a foul. And I totally agree with everything you're saying there, Ben. He clearly wanted the ball more, but obviously it was a plan that Big Sam had put in place. They'd seen it wasn't a coincidence that he was on Lindelof at the time. It was pre-planned. They knew what they were doing, and yeah, they knew that Lindelof was the weaker of the two options, and so they were attacking him. No, Lindelof has to be stronger there. He's a big lad himself. He's huge, and as you say, it's all about commitment and passion sometimes, and you have to be willing to get hurt sometimes. They get looked after a lot, and especially sometimes playing in United's defence, you might argue they get looked after a bit too much by the officials. So no, Lindelof needs to, and I would hope that he might have put his hands up after there. We don't know, obviously, but the chances are he probably did put his hands up and say, look, he knows he's got to be stronger, because he's not a weak defender, Lindelof, generally. So no, I think I don't think United would have been complaining too much about that. When you're playing West Brom and Big Sam, you know what's coming, and if you don't know what's coming, that's really bad planning. But I would give Oddie his due that he would have warned his centre halves at the very least what was coming, and his full backs to make sure they stop the balls coming in the first place. But yeah.
It's the whole reason, Graham, why we're having this conversation around whether that was a foul or not because of VAR. Because he just feels now that it does seem that any contact in the box, offensively or defensively, we're questioning whether it's a penalty or whether it's foul, whether a goal should stand. Then the Premier League after games are coming out and going to managers and going, well, that goal should have been allowed. That goal shouldn't have been allowed. So it's just forcing a whole conversation around what is a foul. Do we know what a foul is anymore?
It's hard, isn't it? It's just so, I find VAR, it's just sucking the life out of some football for me. You know, you watch it and we're not really going to touch it, but that Leicester-Liverpool game and the offside, it's like, it's just so, you can't basically cheer a goal on anymore, and you're getting almost excited when an opponent's goal. I bet one of the most exciting bits for United fans was hoping yesterday that goal would be disallowed, and it's just a sorry state of affairs for the Premier League. Well, for all, it's not just the Premier League. We see it in a lot of sports, and we see it on the continent as well. I think I read something in Italy about how angry they were with their VAR, or it might have been Germany. But yeah, I just think I think they need to start again with VAR at the minute. I think any decision that is debatable like that, it's never going to be black and white. We'll show that clip to 100 people, Ben, and you'll never find complete agreement on that. And I think VAR needs to be reserved for offside. It's a strange one, the offsides, because I remember playing FIFA about 10 years ago, and it was always really annoying when they used to give offside for when your striker went through and then it was pulled back because he was like a millimetre offside. And I remember me and my friends, and we talked about this recently, we always used to argue saying that is so unrealistic, that would never happen in real life, and it's really annoying. And then 10 years on, it's exactly what's happening, where someone's armpit is offside. And to be fair, the offsides are horrible. I hate them, but they are black and white to a certain extent. We will have some queries about the armpits and the feet, but technically they are correct. Decisions like that one yesterday shouldn't even be discussed by VAR for me. I think unless it's a black and white decision, I don't think VAR should be involved. If it's down to opinion, just let the referee get on with it, because what's the difference between the referee in a TV studio somewhere, the referee on the pitch?
The problem is, though, is what you get then is like the Sheffield United game, the Sheffield United Man United game, which I'm not saying we deserve to win that. And maybe, in other situations we've had the luck of VAR, and maybe we didn't then, is the fact that the ref got the first decision completely wrong, apparently, but then got got both decisions completely wrong, but gave one and not the other. So then it becomes inconsistency on the field. Again, I on first look, I thought that was a penalty on Maguire, but then second look, if you slow it down, replay it 5 or 6 or 7 times, it's not a penalty. And for me, again, if you have to play a replay in slow motion 5 or 6 times, I still don't think that's clear and obvious. I still don't think that's a clear and obvious error.
No, exactly. You're exactly right, Ben. And I think when you slow everything down, it's just so. It just makes everything look a lot worse most of the time, doesn't it? I don't think you should have to, exactly as you say, if you've got to look at it 4 or 5 times, then it's not clear and obvious, is it? So it defeats the object. But yeah, totally agree with you there.
I also just want to hit on one more thing. Trime, the Manchester United fan who's in the live chat, mate, shout out to you. Please get in there and have your say. Everyone get in there and have your say on the Lindelof foul. He's talking about what else could Lindelof have done when he had someone on top of him pushing him out of the way. And I think you've got to look at it from this point of view, Trime. If you're a defender in that situation, that was a flat cross that came in the box. It wasn't like it was looped up in the air and dipped down perfectly for the striker to head. Lindelof could have attacked that ball. He could have attacked it. Additionally, he could have done more to stand up stronger to make sure that the striker wasn't able to run in behind him like that or run around the front of him. The fact that his man managed to run around the front of him is worrying. Absolutely worrying. I think for me, that's what he should have been doing. He had 2 options. He either attacks the ball or stands strong. He didn't do either. He stood in no man's land and allowed himself to get beaten. So for me, I still think that Lindelof should have done better there in the air. Potentially, in hindsight, you could say, well, I'd rather have a half-fit by challenging West Brom teams in the air than you would Victor Lindelof, maybe. But hindsight's a great thing. For me, if you want to really analyse that goal, it comes down to the will of wanting to win that header more. And it was a striker who wanted to win that header more. And he'd done everything he needed to do to score the goal. So it is what it is. Annette, fantastic tweet. Good conversation around that. I want to move on to this one now, Graham. Another big talking point from the game yesterday. United's central defence. The partnership doesn't work is what Liam Canning has tweeted here. What have you made this season of Lindelof and Maguire?
Well, I always said when the issue with Maguire, because he was getting a lot of stick last year, wasn't he, when we were talking? I think the defence should have been built more around him. Playing a really high line is not Harry Maguire's game. And if you're going to do that, then what's the point? It's like going back to the days of Chelsea and John Terry. They didn't play a high line. They played to his strengths. And that's what you've got to do with Maguire. He is your main man. And I think Harry Maguire has played quite well this year, to be honest. I think he's done well. But I think Ollie, to his credit, has changed slightly. I don't think they're playing as high a line as what they were last year. And right. I think he's taken that into account, which is good. That's good management. You got to play to your players' strengths. And that's not to say United are not themselves disappointed, because I do understand that they are looking for the centre half, and there's quite a few options out there they are looking at. And we know that Lindelof they're all available, Phil Jones, etc. There's only Maguire and maybe Axel, who's assured of their futures anytime soon. United, it's no coincidence that United are looking for this other centre half, and I think Lindelof and Bailly, they're probably going to chop and change as we would presume. We presumed they would at the start of the year, Ben. That's how it's transpired. Obviously, Maguire has improved, but the other two just aren't quite cutting it, and that's a big reason that you're not pushing for the title. Is that other centre half? You need to have that partnership, and you haven't quite got that class to fill in there, especially when the fullbacks defensively aren't always on top of it. So then you do need your centre halves to step up. So I think it's an area that Ollie knows that needs improving, that the Woodwards and the Glazers know needs improving, and it's one that will be addressed in the summer. But until then, I think I've always liked Eric Bailly. I think he will be an option, but do you then have to use him to maybe go and get a Pau Torres from Villarreal, something like that? Because I think Bailly is probably better, and that equates to him being more sellable than Lindelof, which I think he is.
Yeah, and we're actually going to do a special with a La Liga-based journalist who has done many of the scout reports that we've seen online for Jules Koundé on Friday. So it's going to be interesting to find out a bit more about him, because by the looks of it, he has come a long way since last year when we saw him in the latter stages of the Europa League, where I was not convinced by him at all.
No.
The guy who we're talking with on Friday is waxing lyrical about him to me, saying that he's never seen a player improve like he has since those moments, and his ceiling is still so high. So again, an interesting name now that Upamecano's also gone to Bayern Munich. I never thought he was a perfect partner for Harry anyway, but still, I still stick with it, Graham. I don't know if you agree with this. I think there's a lack of real quality defenders out there. It's not like years gone by where there was really, really good defenders out there. I think there's a lack.
I wouldn't say that. I think Ruben Dias was always there, and I think City have done very well there. I think the boy Torres at Villarreal is very good.
Does he complement Maguire right, though, Pau Torres? Because from what I've been hearing from La Liga about him is that potentially he doesn't really have that strength. He isn't very fast, and he's questionable on the ball as well.
I wouldn't say that's not from what I've seen of him. I think he's a high class defender. I think that's a little harsh on him, to be honest. And sometimes you just have to trust your scouts. It's like Ruben Dias. Yeah. A lot of teams passed over him before City went for him. United were banging to him for a long time. Koundé, the problem with Koundé, obviously he's got a huge release clause, and there's a reason that City chose Diaz over Koundé, and I don't think it was just the price. But like, if you really wanted an instant impact, Koulibaly's always there. There are players out there to get. The problem with Koulibaly is he hasn't got any sell on, but I think there is a lot of decent defenders out there. Upamecano, I didn't particularly, wasn't a huge fan of his, but if I was United, I'd go and get Koulibaly personally. I think he's attainable. I think if you offer Napoli 50 million, you're going to get him, even less maybe in the market. And he'd be the one I'd go and get, because I think United are a team now you could probably press on the next couple of years. And if you do manage to keep someone like Pogba for another year, then you've got an instant impact in Koulibaly. So he would be the one that I'd go for if I was United.
I do agree with you 100% on building that defence around Harry Maguire now. You've got to. He's your leader. He's your captain. He's by far our best defender. And I said this to someone the other day who was giving him a little bit of stick. I said, at the end of the day, you question about Harry Maguire being a title-winning defender, or being able to be part of that partnership, but to have the quality of being a title-winning defender. I still think if you have a look at someone like Harry Maguire and take him out of this United team right now, where would United be if we didn't have that solidness and that consistency with Harry Maguire at the back there? I think, his impact says it all. Just go and have a look at the impact he's had on this club. I think he's a very, very good defender, a top defender. And look, when people question about him wearing the armband, at the end of the day, you've got to trust his fellow professionals in what they say about him and what the manager says about him. And he's a captain for a reason. And I think we've just got to back that. However, I am going to bring up this tweet from James Benge, who was watching Maguire's interview on Sky, which slightly concerned me with something that Harry Maguire said, but also I think puts yesterday into context with how poor United were going forward. Maguire said on Sky, "You're not going to come here and create 10 chances against West Brom." However, as James pointed out, every team between November the 8th and February the 2nd created 10 or more chances in Premier League games against West Brom. Albion defended well, but you don't get the great sense that they were tested. And also United created the same amount of chances as Spurs did against them the week before, which was only 9. So it's not just our defence, Graham, it's our attack as well. Why aren't we getting a song out of them at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm, there's a reason that United were looking at Jack Grealish in the summer. And it wasn't a matter of we've got Fernandes and he won't do. I think United are very reliant on Fernandes and they're very reliant on Pogba. I don't think they're getting enough out of fullbacks personally. I think the way United are set up, I think those fullbacks need to be doing a lot more. They really do. And I think that is a disappointing part of United's game at the moment. The way they're not getting anything out of them. You see the way Chelsea play even now, with James and those on the right and pushing on. I just think there's something missing there in United. But
when you say that, Graham, is it Shaw or Wan-Bissaka specifically who we're not getting enough out of, or what areas is it that we're not getting enough out of them from? Because I feel like Shaw, 4 assists so far this year, is much improved than it's been in previous years. Is that still good enough? I don't know. Have your say on that? But also Wan-Bissaka, I think, has improved greatly this season. I actually think yesterday he put 2 or 3 really, really good balls in the box. And I actually think yesterday was the first time we've seen a lazy Cavani in a Man United shirt. Feel free to hit on that.
I just think Wan-Bissaka, from the moment he's arrived at United, has been hugely disappointing. For the money you paid, you're buying the finished product there, and he's been anything but. And I think he really needs to step up now. The money you paid for him, and he'll be lucky to get an England squad at this rate for the Euros. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think, the Walker, Alexander-Arnold, Trippier, obviously some people are biggest fans of his. Reece James. I don't think Wan-Bissaka gets near that England squad at the moment. Well, he shouldn't do, but he needs to. I don't know. Wan-Bissaka just needs to take this. He's got that spot now. He needs to take it by the scruff of the neck. He needs to show he's the best. He needs to show he can compete with Alexander-Arnold. But I think he's absolutely light years away from him at the moment. So I think that's disappointing. I don't think that's to do with Ole. I think that's to do with the player. And I think, fair enough, he's come from London. He hasn't settled well. But I think he needs to, and you said he put a couple of crosses in yesterday, but he needs to dominate that sort of game, Ben. It's West Brom. It's not Juventus you're playing. It's West Brom. Wan-Bissaka, we've seen games where Alexander-Arnold, and I know we're talking about possibly the best right back in the world there, but Wan-Bissaka, the money you paid, and he has the abilities. I do think he does have the abilities and everything about him to be that, but I just don't think he is. And I think United, when he isn't, I think that hurts him, because you do need that. You need that overlap. You need the constant pressure. You need him to be like another member of your attack when you're going forward. And that's just the way it is. And I think I'm not putting it all on Wan-Bissaka, but I think he's been a huge disappointment for United, and he needs to step up. He really does need to say to Southgate, yeah, look at me, I should be in your squad, but I don't think he is. And I think that he is one of the, not issues, but I think he needs to start producing 8, 9 out of 10 out of it every week rather than 7 out of 10.
I do agree with you that Wan-Bissaka needs to make some improvements, but I also believe that Wan-Bissaka is still a young lad who is learning, who deserves that time, and he does still have that ceiling, that high ceiling. And I do think that he's getting better. There was times last season and this season where he was extremely poor when pressed. He was poor going forward. He was lacking to even put the ball in the box. That just wasn't happening. And I do think that he has improved this season. But I do agree.
You paid £45 million, didn't you, for him, Ben? £45 million you paid.
Graham, fees just don't matter, do they? Because if we're going to talk about transfer fees, then we could be here for about 6 weeks debating some of the worst transfers on the planet. I think at the end of the day, Wan-Bissaka was brought in as a future project, but was pushed straight into the United team. We've got to remember that he had 1 season in the Premier League with Crystal Palace, who were battling, played completely different than United play, completely different. Wan-Bissaka was able to sit there as a defender and tackle absolutely everyone and win every single battle on that right-hand side. I believe personally that Wan-Bissaka still does that. I still think defensively he's probably the best defender in our team. I just think you're never gonna. He's just fantastic. And I also think I would even push that. You said there you think Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best right back in the world. I still think defensively Wan-Bissaka's the best, but it's going forward that he doesn't.
You think Wan-Bissaka's the best defensive right back in the world
by a mile? Who's better than him defensively? Who's better than him defensively at right back? Maybe you could answer Kimmich, but again, he's better going forward and doesn't really play right back anymore. As I said, I feel like there's a real lack of quality of defenders, and maybe saying that proves that point. I think when it comes to his tackling, being able to mark a player out of the game, beating
for
the
instance,
best
I think if you compared Wan-Bissaka to Kyle Walker, for instance,
Kyle Walker can't even get in the City team.
Yes, but that doesn't mean he's not better than Wan-Bissaka.
But then again, also, I think that argument of Trent Alexander-Arnold being the best right back in the world, if we're going to go on right now, we can't call that, surely. He has been awful this season.
Talent-wise, he is. Yeah, we're not on form. A lot of the Liverpool players aren't quite living up to their hype at the minute. But no, I just think in terms of Wan-Bissaka, yeah, he is a good defender. I wouldn't put him any higher.
Brilliant defender. Graham, brilliant defender. Come on, say it. Brilliant defender. He's a fantastic defender.
He's not a brilliant defender. But
what?
He's a very good, but it's part of his whole game, Ben, as well. Where listen, I think he's a very good player. I think there's more in there. You know, I don't think he's a bad player. I think there's more in there. I think his ability. I think he has got everything to be the best right back in the world. He has got that in his locker. Let's get that right. He has got that in his locker, and I think I'm more slightly frustrated with him that he's not that pushing on. He's not an immediate replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold. You know, he's not that one we're talking about. Because not that he isn't good enough, because he really, really is. And I do agree with you. His potentially ceiling is the best in the world, but I just don't think he's anywhere near that at the moment. Not to say he won't be, but yeah, I do like him as a player. I will give him some leeways, because going from Palace to United is a huge move. Going from London to Manchester is a huge move. But I would just have liked to see a bit more from him at this moment in time. I think he should be taking some games by the scruff of the neck. Like yesterday, I think it was there to be had. And as you say, he wasn't helped massively by some of the other players. Like you say, Cavani wasn't great. But yeah, I just think these little extra percentages build here and there, you know, around the park. I think if Wan-Bissaka gets that extra little level, you know, and a few of the others, I think that's just where Ollie needs to get them sharpened up a bit, because I think you're giving away points here which you don't need to. And that's where it's impacting you. And it is from all these little half a percentages here where Wan-Bissaka, and we'll say, like, there was games last year where Trent Alexander-Arnold did win games on his own for Liverpool. And Wan-Bissaka has never won, or probably never won a game for United, where I think he can. He is that good. And I think yesterday was one where I bet Ollie wasn't criticising it, but I bet he thought, you know what, you could have unlocked that whole game for us at times.
I think also with that, and on that point you've just made too, I think a very, very big point to make is also around the fact that, you know, that these now conventional fullbacks are now having to play as wing backs, and they're also having to play as inverted wing backs, depending on what system you're in. Like Pep plays inverted wing backs more often than not. Liverpool with Trent and Robertson play wingers, basically. Their fullbacks are wingers. So yeah, I do completely agree. I think for a young lad coming through now, you know, like Wan-Bissaka, he has to adapt his game to be more than just that, as I'd call him, brilliant defender. And I agree with you. I think having that ceiling so high is where frustration potentially does come from with him. But there's definitely a player in there, and he definitely
100%, yeah, 100%,
isn't the problem in this United team at the moment. I think the bigger problem, like you've mentioned there, and I think one big thing that people overlook is partnerships. Wan-Bissaka's never had anyone consistently in front of him out there, and he's never had a natural winger to play off of. You know, you might argue that Rashford isn't a natural winger out on that left-hand side, but the amount of games that him and Shaw have played together, they have a fantastic understanding there. And I think
that's mean, yeah, Shaw knows where he's going to be. He knows that thing, and but obviously United are well aware of that as well, Ben. Hence it seems like years of trying to get Jadon Sancho, which is still ongoing, which they will still be pursuing, they still are pursuing, and it still might happen. But Ollie has always known they want the right winger. So again, it's one where I think United do know what they want. Ollie knows what he wants. They want this right winger. They want the centre half. And obviously, I still think they need that striker as well. So I think that they still know what they want. But I just think this season might be that, you know, where it's a bit of a shame that they didn't quite get what they wanted to push on. But then again, they will argue, and I'm sure very successfully, that the gamble they've taken not to start doing some of these major signings has worked, because they could end up getting Jadon Sancho for a huge reduction.
I think it's quite funny though. In hindsight, we always talk about hindsight in football, and the little margins that you mentioned there. Like the more and more we talk about it, there are certain areas within this United team and certain players who just aren't up there yet to be in that position. But I also think that's also what's quite funny about all this is it takes being in that challenge to see it. And it takes like sort of being in this position to really talk openly about where everyone's actually at. So yeah, time, still a young squad. And I think this is quite an interesting tweet here. Amy's fantastic on Twitter, by the way. Amy is United. If it weren't for Bruno, then Oddie would be out of the job. No hate, just facts. Is that too... I mean, from Amy, fair play to her. I mean, she's tweeted exactly what she thought there and has got some response from it. I think later on, she also put up that she wasn't going to delete the tweet, but she sort of knee-jerkingly tweeted some bits at full time through her frustration. But are we seeing a pattern here, Graham, in games that are really, really tight, that Bruno magic is keeping us in them?
Yeah, but to be fair, that's what you signed him for. He is your X factor. But I think it also shows that, you know, that's why he wanted Jadon Sancho. It's why you looked at Jack Grealish. You know, I think Ole and Woodward et al. Obviously realised there was something else missing in there. You know, you can't be too over reliant. But and people say you can't be too over reliant on players. Why not? You know, every team Ronaldo and Messi play, and them teams are normally reliant on them. And I think Bruno can handle it. But I think it's a little harsh on Ole, because I think if you took some of these great players out of a lot of these teams, a lot of managers would be under risk, you know, and especially United team when he's arguably, you know, one of the few world-class players in there, and so. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Would Ole be in a job if it wasn't Ed Woodward in charge and the Glazers as well? You know, that's a different thing. It's an interesting one. It really is. But I think that just underlines the job that Bruno's done since he came in. You know, and he has been superb. I think rather than say would Ole be out of job, I would say you're a bit too over reliant on Bruno, possibly. But then you could argue, is that Ole's job to sort out? And it probably is.
I think I don't think Amy is Oddie out, by the way, to anyone out there who's questioning this. So don't jump on Amy's back. The reason why I grabbed hold of this tweet is because I think it's a really conversation to have, because obviously Bruno came in, United weren't in the greatest of form when Bruno first came in, and he just seemed to rejuvenate the club. You know, just looking at his stats now, 38 goal contributions in 38 games for United. That's remarkable. Like that's up there with, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, we were talking about Messi at Barca, Ronaldo at Madrid. Those were the numbers. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that Bruno's now doing that in the Premier League after being at the club for just over a year is unbelievable. So I think it is it's a right thing to say, a right thing to hit on, and something that you do think about sometimes. Could you imagine if we hadn't have signed Bruno in January? Would the club have had that rejuvenation that we needed at that point? The leadership he brought in, the creativity, he gets the best out of the players around him 9 times out of 10. And you just wonder now, we're seeing Martial drop off a bit. Well, you know, after lockdown, when Bruno was playing his best football with Martial, Rashford and Greenwood as the front three and what they were doing as that group, it just makes you sort of wonder, doesn't it? Like that impact he made. And if he wasn't there and he didn't make that impact and United had carried on that form, what would have happened? Because I think you've got a very short memory if you don't remember the amount of fans and press and pundits that were gunning for Oddie at the start of last year.
Oh, yeah, there were. And you could argue rightfully so. And obviously, I've never been Ole's biggest fan. I still don't think you'll win the title with him at the helm, personally. I still stand by that. I think you've got, as I say, I've always said this, Ben, and I know a lot of people disagreed when I said it last year. I didn't think you were a million miles away. I thought you were only two players away last year. And I think that's transpired now, where you are better than some people thought. So I think I've been proven right in that regard. I just, you know, and to be fair, look at Liverpool when they did it with Klopp. It can be those last couple of signings that get you over the hill. And I think this is the key thing now. I think you need the centre half. I think you need the winger, but I think you need to sort the front line out. You know, I think that I don't think Martial is good enough to take to the title at all. I think you need that. I think you need that real striker. Obviously, you went after Haaland, so obviously there is that inclination to think, yeah, Ole wanted that big striker. Cavani obviously isn't going to take it to the title, but he's a very good stand-in, gets you through. And we'll see what happens in the summer. But I think if you go and get that either big striker or maybe Rashford and replace him on the left, but you get Sancho, you get the centre half, and then it depends what happens with Pogba, because you will have to replace him. But you sell Pogba, maybe try for Grealish. I don't think you'll get him, but if you try for Grealish, get the winger in, get a centre forward. So I don't think you're that far away. I really don't. But I do think, as you say, with that striker and the right winger, that is a massive part of what you do going forward. And obviously, you do struggle to create chances sometimes, but when it's tough up there at times. And I do feel for Ollie as well, because there's only so much you can do. And I think the teams that Ollie is picking up front, I don't think many people would disagree with. But I think, we're just missing that X factor at the minute, which I think is going to hamper him. So I do feel for him a bit, but I do think they are going to make those changes, or will try to in the summer. And I think they'll be fairly fortunate that the market is going to be helpful for English clubs, shall we say? I think the English clubs I think they're going to help, and obviously I know a lot of people talking about De Gea and Henderson, but I don't think that's going to impact on anything when it comes to title bids. But I think that if you can get Sancho and get a number 9, a centre half, I think you'll be up there challenging. I really do.
Well, it's interesting with this because you talk about having the X factor. It's runs like this that we need the X factors to win us games, and not only one man can do that. Simon Stone tweeted this out, and I didn't actually know this. 10 points from 7 matches for United. Runners included games against all bottom 3 in there. Upcoming games, Graham. I want to look ahead on that tweet. United have Newcastle at home. This is in between the Europa League games. Newcastle at home, then Chelsea and City away. We're then home to West Ham and Brighton, and then Tottenham away. The next 6 games, they're really going to define United's season, aren't they? I mean, United need to make sure that we're picking up those points away from home, because we haven't been great against the top 6 this year.
No, I think I've seen you got a few games in there. In Newcastle, was it West Ham and Brighton? I think they're the games you look at. And let's not beat around the bush. I think United as a club are probably aiming for top 4, and I think you're well on your way to achieving that. And even if you lose the bulk of those games, you can't see any other teams going on runs at the minute, apart from Leicester, who I think Leicester could cause issues to teams. I love the way Leicester play. I think there's you can see what they're doing. You see the way they play. And I think so. City, Leicester, but then the other 2 spots are wide open. And I think United are on the way to getting another one of those. United and Leicester are going to force one of the other big boys to miss out. Also Liverpool as well are there. So I think it's going to be very hard for the likes of Chelsea and Tottenham to get in now. But and it's fair play to United, they've forced that issue. They are in this position now where they are putting the pressure on, and you have to be in it to win it. It's all very well. I know United they're not in the greatest run of forms, but I say you have to be in it to win it, and they're in the right place at the moment to make that challenge. And I think they are really in the mix for top 4. But again, I think my ambition levels are being dragged down a bit by all these United fans who are aiming for top 4,
Graham, I agree with you. Our ambition should not be top 4. With where we are in the league at the moment, our ambition should be top 2 at the very least. And Jamie, just so you know, we have City away. It's not City. We drew 0-0 with them at home in a ball draw, didn't we, at the end of last year? So yeah, it's City. It is City at home. So looking at that, Graham, what have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games there. Home to Newcastle, away to Chelsea and City, home to West Ham, home to Brighton, away to Tottenham. So what's that? 6 games would be 18 points? Is that right? 18 points?
Something like that. I bet you're obviously annoyed that Frank isn't still at Chelsea, because that's a very different game now, isn't it? Away to Chelsea.
Yeah,
but then again, away to Tottenham is very different as well.
Yeah, and but then again, also, again, I want revenge against Tottenham. I just want revenge against Tottenham from what happened earlier on in the season. I don't want us to close up, and I want us to really.
But as well, Ben, it's you talk about Europa League campaign coming up, and I don't know whether this is the X factor with Ollie or it's the leprechaun within him, but no one even thinks about the fact that you dived out the Champions League. It's forgotten about, isn't it? It's a really interesting one where Zidane gets so much pressure, and some of these managers at these top clubs get so much abuse. And I think he does get away with murder sometimes, Ollie. I think your Champions League exit, for instance, you should still be in that. You should still be in the Champions League.
I mean, to be fair, he deserved all the criticism he got after that Champions League, which is why I won't sit here and apologise for saying I am absolutely livid with Ollie, and I wouldn't. And I think I sat here and I said it outright. I said, if he was gone tomorrow because of what happened in that Champions League run, especially in the last two games, we lost the last two games, I believe, because of poor decisions from our manager. And that's why I believe we crashed out of the Champions League. That if the board turned around and said, Ollie, bye-bye, I would say, you're a Manchester United legend, bye, but we've got to move on. Because for me, in those two big games, he didn't learn from the semi-finals before, and it was just again, it was him. I believe that's why we crashed out. So that's why I will never sit here and go, I'm sorry for turning around and saying, he completely screwed it up for us and gave him all the criticism that I did. I've never been strictly Ollie out because I don't believe that this revolving door of managers is the right thing to do right now. When also, as I've said to you before, Graham, I do believe we are overachieving massively at the moment. I believe you are right. The squad is really, really good. But when you take these little margins, like you said, they create big margins. When you put so many square pegs into round holes for so long and the team's just all over the place, it still needs to be built up, and you still need to be able to find that perfect solution to be able to go on and challenge City and Liverpool. I think last season, and I'll still go on record saying this, we had no right to finish third last season. We had no right to finish third last season. We got there because of the drop-off from other clubs. I believe slightly that we're at where we are now because, again, the drop-off of other clubs.
I don't really see, and I've liked a lot of the stuff that Ollie's done, but I'm not seeing progression from an awful lot of players.
No, I do believe
and I just think, I'm not particularly Ollie out, man. I'm not particularly out, man. He's a great person. He's a good footballer, man. He's a good United man. But is not top class, I again come at it from the standpoint of I think United are the biggest club in the world, so they deserve to have one of the best managers in the world, and you haven't got that.
But I also do think that a few things that Oddie has done over the past 6 months, I think the way he's handled some players, some of the ways he's adapted to games, and some of the performances we have put in over the last 6 months.
Oh, he's adapted because obviously look at him. He's improved Maguire. He has. He's changed the defense. He's taken that on board, which he had to do, but he has done. It's easier said than done. So he has changed that. He's made you better at the back. He's changed it so you are playing towards Maguire's capabilities, which is good. I think your midfield he's helped there with like some McTominay, etc. Pogba's starting to play again now, which you could argue whether it's to do with him or not. But I think obviously, and to be fair, they haven't got he wanted that right winger in. So I think it's hard to judge him totally because he really did want that right winger in. So I do feel for him there. But obviously he took on board why United didn't do that deal. So yeah, as you said, I think it's just frustration. I don't think you're overachieving. I think if you look at that squad in your 1 to 11, you should be probably not challenging 1 to 2, but you'd definitely be up there for third best starting 11 in the Premier League.
Yeah, and do you know what? Part of me also thinks that if you take a look at this squad, obviously, injuries aside, if you have a look, and I said this when we played Liverpool at Anfield, and don't get me wrong, I know they had injuries. I'm not saying that they didn't have injuries. But if you had that Liverpool squad and took it player for player on just any given moment and not on form, I do think there's more Manchester United players within that combined squad than Liverpool players when it comes to individual quality. And that's where I agree with you, Graham. I do think United have got a better squad now than we've had in a long time, and a better squad than those around us in the league potentially as well. So yeah, we'll wait and see anyway. Wait and see how the season goes. We're going to get you on again, Graham, 100%, because we've got to dissect this season and see what happens and see where it goes. But for me, I'm completely with you, and thank you for your points as well on the tweets. I love doing this Twitter reaction show. You know what Twitter's like. Some of the stuff you get the weird, the random, and the wonderful. So it's always good to have a look at how other people are reacting to the game. It's like the Twitter version of Gogglebox. There we go.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's great. I can see the abuse flooding in already, so it's not a problem.
No, everyone's been really receptive today, Graham, because I feel like we've covered everything in a balanced way, which is what matters.
Yeah, as I said, I always come out from a viewpoint that I think United are the biggest club in the world. So I think I think I'm probably a bit harsh sometimes, especially on Ollie and stuff, but I still think United are the biggest club in the world. So it almost frustrates me when I see this top four talk and stuff, when I'm probably more Roy Keane-esque in that manner where, it's not good enough for United. It isn't. And even now, anyone who celebrates finishing second and under is wrong.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I wouldn't even celebrate finishing second, to be honest. I'm only going to celebrate the season if we win a trophy, because that's a be all and end all of it as a football fan for me. I'll talk about progression if we have progressed, but I'm not going to sit here and celebrate a season where we've not picked up any silverware. So fingers crossed.
Well, if you finish behind Leicester City, you obviously haven't progressed. So there we go.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
If you finish behind Leicester, you haven't progressed in the slightest.
Oh no, of course not at all. Not at all. The only thing that some might argue is that obviously we've reduced the deficit with Liverpool, but I don't think it matters what Liverpool do this year. I really don't. They're not there, are they, as a club?
You could argue that's solely, if you take Van Dijk and Gomez, if you take the starting two centre halves out of most teams, that's going to hamper them.
Well, can I just say one thing? I 100% hope you don't get any abuse, Graham, because I think you're a sound guy, and I'll always.
No, it's fine.
Can we not let the fact that Graham said that Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best right back in the world be shoved under the carpet, please? So, Reds, get in the comments on that one.
There's not.
No more explaining yourself on that, Graham. You made the statement. It was there. You made your point.
Trent over Aaron all day long. All day long.
That's where we end the show. Graham, as ever, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, mate.
Guys.
Thank you again soon. The United Daily Podcast back tomorrow. Make sure you come and join us on YouTube, youtube.com/all4united. Hit that subscribe button. Join our Red community. We're live at every lunchtime. And of course, make sure you do as well. Join us over on your podcast platform of choice. Just search All for United, United Daily, to listen back to any of our shows. Once again, thanks to Graham. Thanks for you guys for getting involved in the live chat. And we'll speak to you tomorrow lunchtime. Take it easy.